America's long retreat from its founding principles is certainly alarming. But the good news is that a growing number of heroic individuals from all walks of life are standing up against the encroaching tyranny, are standing up in defense of faith, family, and freedom. Let's take a look. This is Beyond the Cover with your host, Gary Benoit. And today we have with us Rebecca Terrell, Senior Editor for the New American Magazine. Rebecca, welcome to the program.
Thank you, Gary. Good to be here.
Now, as you know, Rebecca, the tagline for the New American Magazine is that freedom shall not perish. And in the interest of protecting and restoring our freedoms, we necessarily need to cover a lot of bad news. And we need to talk not just about the bad things that are happening, but who's bringing those bad things about, because obviously when you look at what's happening, it becomes very obvious that there is a conspiracy for global control, a conspiracy that's working to destroy our nation. But that, of course, is not the purpose of this episode of Beyond the Cover. Today we want to talk about some good news. And the good news is that people are getting involved, that people are awakening and they're getting involved in the freedom movement. And more heroic individuals are making a difference. And as you know, because you've written so many of the installments, we have a column called Faith, Family, Freedom, where we basically salute these individuals. And Rebecca, I think a good starting point is to discuss the rationale or the purpose for that column. And let's start with the title, Faith, Family, Freedom.
Well, yeah, and I actually, Gary, I should be interviewing you about this because I believe this was actually your brainchild. Was it not?
I think it was a committee effort, and sometimes the committee can work on things where they don't come up with a two-hump camel.
That's right. Well, originally, the committee decided the name should be Standing Up for Faith, Family, Freedom, as you said, and that was too long. So it became Faith, Family, Freedom. But yeah, you're right. And it's not that we're intentionally trying to tell good news, but when you have when you need to warn people about something, you usually don't have to warn them about good news. It is bad news. So a lot of what we publish can be perceived as doom and gloom, even though it is not our intention to discourage anyone. It is our intention to rally the troops. Yes. But also, yes, in doing that, you have to remember there's always the human element. We're not robots. We need that little shot in the arm of add a girl, add a boy kind of a thing. And that's what Faith, Family, Freedom has become. But it is more than we have the column too called Goodness of America. And Raven does such a good job with that column. She always hunts down some really heroic things that individuals do to help others. And is a beautiful column. But Faith, Family, Freedom is a little bit more than that because we are focused on people who are trying to promote the idea that we are under attack.
Right.
As a country, we are under attack as individuals. Our religion, our faith is under attack, as well as our country and our families. So, the God, family, freedom, the old, it's cliche, but it's cliche because it's true. Those are the most important things in this world. And it is our responsibility to protect and defend those three things above all other things. So, Faith, Family, Freedom, I think, has quite a big following. A lot of people have mentioned it to me, and that is something. Usually, you can know about something because we're on the inside. We know our magazine. We publish our magazine. We write articles in our magazine. But the fact that readers are noticing it is a big deal, and it matters. It matters to them.
It's really gratifying to know that the column is effective, and
yes,
and also inspiring other people. And
Absolutely.
Certainly, inspiration is something that we can use in the freedom movement.
Oh, absolutely. It always is. Like I said, we're human and we need that. We need that inspiration. But I thought it was wonderful in preparing for our conversation today. You composed a list of the Faith, Family, Freedom articles that we've had so far. Was that a comprehensive list that you sent me?
I think so. We started the column back in January of last year, so just over a year now.
Okay.
and there are 24 columns on the list. I could have missed one of them. And you, I believe, have done 10 of the columns in that list. So you've done quite a few.
I couldn't believe it. It was kind of a
Hmm.
little, hey, the review of the 2022
Right.
news. So
And
it
I
was
should
nice.
interject, too, that Annalisa Pesic also has done many of the columns. And right now,
Yes,
she stands at 11, at least according to my list. So one more than you.
that's right. We're Faith Family Freedom Sisters, though.
Right.
And then Veronica has done a couple, and Mitch has done one as well. So
Hmm.
it was fascinating to see because, we get so busy, and I'd forgotten about half of these that I'd written. Not that I'd forgotten about the people, but it's just not
Right.
top of mind because you get so busy on what you're currently working on. And this was a lovely list. I'm so glad you composed this. So
Right.
shall we go through it for our listeners
Well,
here?
let's do that in a moment, but I think it's worth pointing out before we go through the particulars
Mhm.
that we do have a criteria every time we come up with a new topic for the column, and that's where the original title, even though it was too long to use as the actual title, standing up for faith, family, freedom. That's where that title, that original title, has been so helpful because it really guides us. We ask ourselves, who's standing up for faith? Who's standing up for freedom? Who's
Right.
standing up for family? And really, we have no trouble finding material, do we, Rebecca?
We don't, and thank God for that. It's just one more proof of God's existence that there is never a deficit of goodness out there. Um, we don't hear about it because the major media doesn't exactly extol that kind of activity, but that's why we exist. That's why the New American is
Sure.
here to get the
And,
real
and
news.
actually, how could there be greatness? And really, we're talking about greatness on the part of the people we profile. They may well, in one way, they're certainly everyday or ordinary Americans. Many of them are, but at the same time, they're extraordinary.
They are.
They're extraordinary in terms of their love of God, family, and country.
And I think that's exactly what I titled a
Hmm.
recent article about Linda Wildern and Lisa Woods, Ordinary Citizens, Extraordinary Americans, because they're two ladies, one in Michigan and one in
Hmm.
Ohio, who have taken on the establishment, and boy, they are just making great strides, waking
Right.
people up
They're
to
the
what's
dynamic duo.
going on. They are.
So,
Do you know before I wrote about them, they had not met each other?
oh,
They
really?
had, yeah, they
Okay,
knew
I
of
did not realize that. Could
before
you
I.
tell us a little more about them, Rebecca, and maybe mention some other examples too, some others we have profiled in the column?
Sure, absolutely. Well, Linda Wildern and Lisa Woods were really connected without knowing it because it was their husbands who had started some fantastic activism,
Hmm.
political, patriotic activism, and each of them lost their husbands to untimely deaths, and they picked that torch right up, and they've made leaps and bounds out of what their husbands started, which is a great, it's a wonderful testimony. And I write
Hmm.
about that in that Ordinary Citizens, Extraordinary Americans. Another one, Linda and I have become quite good friends
Hmm.
since then. And she turned me on to another activist in her state, Janice Daniels, and her story is coming out in this most recent New American and the Faith Family Freedom. Janice Daniels served as mayor of Troy, Michigan, and was absolutely attacked for her defense of traditional family and of constitutional principles. She is featured regularly on Mike Lindell's Frank's speech
Hmm.
broadcasts. Now she's fantastic, absolutely. I just talked to her earlier today. Actually, she's going to be traveling down to Florida later this year, and we're gonna try to meet up because that's another thing about all of these interviews and making contact with all these people. You form this bond, or I shouldn't even say it that way. There's almost this bond already there that
Right.
you get to discover because we're all in this same boat and pulling at the same oars together. So,
Yeah. In a way, when you meet other people in the freedom movement, you may meet a person for the first time,
uh-huh.
but because of your common beliefs.
Mhm.
In a way, it seems like you've known that person your entire life. Like you're meeting for the first time somebody you've always known.
That's
Have you
right.
ever felt that way?
Oh, always. I
Hmm.
mean, I've been was born into a Birch family,
Hmm.
and my parents sent myself and my three sisters to John Birch Camp in the summer, which we used to
Hmm.
have back then. And of course, those are my fondest memories from teenage years, because truly a lot of those friendships that we formed back then are still alive and well today. Because we
Right.
are we're family members who haven't met yet. So, but anyway, just I mean, going back on through the list. Of course, I can't speak for Annalisa and Veronica and Mitch, but I think that they'd be right there with us on everything. I think they'd say ditto to everything that we've said. But another person who so impressed me. Now she's not a member of the John Birch Society. The other ladies who I've mentioned so far have been members, but Dr. Christina Francis,
Yes.
who is CEO of the American Association of Pro-Life Obstetricians and Gynecologists. That is a group that formed off of the mainstream American Association of Obstetricians and Gynecologists.
Hmm.
When that group became so very woke and leftist, and especially liberal in regard to abortion, and a lot of I mean, if you're an OB-GYN, you're just 99.9% of the time you're pro-life. I mean, I should say not of the time, but 99% of them are pro-life, because when you have a patient who is pregnant, you're not just treating one patient, you have two patients there.
Right.
One that you haven't actually met yet in person, but who's developing inside. And she had such a compelling story to tell, because she spent so many years in Africa in
Hmm.
missions, and serving the women in Africa. I can't remember which country right now off the top of my head, but the, just the profound respect for life among what we in our first world country would consider to be grossly impoverished conditions. But they seem to have their priorities straight when they are not immersed in hedonism the way our culture is. So that was a beautiful story, and I'd encourage people to go read about Dr. Christina Francis in our Faith Family Freedom article about her, if they haven't run across that yet. But then others too. Just our article praising our farmers who are under attack.
Right.
In so many ways. Uh, Talking about how every single one of us depends upon the farmers of our country. Every single day, and truly every single hour, our clothes come from farms. The materials used to build our houses and used to make all of the things that we put in our houses come from farms. So it's not just a food thing. And we're seeing that now. We're seeing it with all the rising prices and the supply chain shortages and all this. We're seeing how our farmers are under attack. So yes, this is the kind of thing that we're doing. It's building on that goodness of America theme, and talking about these people who are living like they truly, I guess it's that old saying about the price of freedom is eternal vigilance.
Yes.
And they're living as if they truly believe that. And if we could only clone them and make more of
Right.
them, we'd have a really great shot but it was only the few who didn't ignore Paul Revere as he was riding through the streets shouting, "The British are coming." Most people rolled over in their beds and continued sleeping. It was the few who joined him who brought about the American Revolution and American independence. So we have to remember that. It doesn't take quantity, it takes quality. And that's what we have here. That's what
That's
we like
true.
to
And of
talk about.
course, the last example you cited was that of the American farmers.
Yes.
And that's an example of a column that talked about a sector of American society. And
Yes.
it was really good you brought that in, because some of the faith, family, freedom columns have focused on a particular individual. That one focused on an entire sector. And we're doing both in the column. And of course, the farmers, I think, is a really good example, because they're close to the land, and obviously the weather and factors outside the control of farmers have a lot to do with what happens in terms of their livelihood, and perhaps that's a reason why they're so close to family. They're so close to the God, and you're really talking about a group that, as a whole, is a group that really really is patriotic and loves God, family, and country.
Absolutely, absolutely. And so many, like one of my first articles for Faith, Family, Freedom was about the truckers up in Canada.
Hmm.
That was so long ago. That seems like so long ago now, but it was really happening a year ago right now. And that was a group as well who were literally fighting for freedom. And they were ultimately, I mean, I guess you could say in the short term they were unsuccessful, but it really woke you up that all of the people who donated to their originally
Hmm.
uh, their GoFundMe, and then when GoFundMe shut them off, their Give, Send, Go, that just thousands upon thousands upon thousands of dollars that they raised, tens of thousands of dollars that they raised, which told you people care.
Yes.
There is an undercurrent here. I think COVID has woken a lot of people up. A lot of people have taken the red pill now, but the red pill isn't an end. The red pill is only a beginning. And
Right.
so that's what we're trying to do with the New American is show people, okay, now you're woken up and you're asking what to do. We have the answers because we know what the problem is.
Right. And of course, the best way to implement those answers is through the John Birch Society,
That's
which
right.
is the parent organization of the New American Magazine. One more question, Rebecca. Has your own work on the column on faith, family, freedom inspired you? Has it given you more hope in terms of the future course of our country?
Oh, absolutely, yes. That's an unequivocal yes, because as you said at the beginning of this interview, lots of times our news can be kind of doom and gloom.
Hmm.
And it is so nice to get in contact with these people, or as you say, the groups of people too, and read their inspiring stories. And they actually are often stories of great suffering, but they're also stories of great triumph. And we do. I think there was a saint who said we find that those who are closest to God are those who have most to suffer. So we can't sit back on the laurels of those who came before and fought for our freedom. They didn't fight for our freedom so we could sit in our easy chairs. They fought for freedom. They have handed us the baton. It is our turn. We have a very small window of opportunity. Our lives are very short. So these are people who are very much inspirations, and I always look forward to when I get in a faith, family, freedom assignment. I always have a smile.
Great. Well, thank you so much, Rebecca. And of course, for our viewers, we encourage everyone to take a look at the column, to read it if you haven't already seen it. And of course, we encourage everybody who is interested in preserving freedom, and that should be all of us, to become involved in the freedom movement through the John Birch Society. Thank you.
The John Birch Society has been working tirelessly since 1958 to preserve freedom, safeguard the Constitution, and restore our God-given rights. We continually educate voters and lead the freedom movement. Join us as we work against a tyrannical one-world government. United as one, we can defeat this conspiracy against a free America. JVS founder Robert Welch said, "Education is our total strategy and truth our only weapon." Join us in restoring this great nation.